Well, it's official. Donald Trump is starting yet another round of tariffs against the world and has made it clear the BRICS organization will be his #1 target in the future. But Trump has to be careful. The BRICS organization continues to grow in power and leverage. Just last month, Vietnam formally joined BRICS as a partner member. And as this New York Times article warns, under attack by Trump tariffs, Asian countries seek out better friends. Trump is playing with fire, and as the saying goes, you will eventually get burned. Trump is now under massive scrutiny from even his biggest Republican supporters for not releasing the Epstein files. But this isn't even the worst of his problems. Just look at this poll from YouGov, which details how Trump's approval rating is plummeting on every major issue, from jobs in the economy to foreign policy to inflation and prices, all of which are the direct result of tariffs. The US 20-year Treasury note recently jumped above 5.04% and is closing in on the highest level in 18 years, which is a clear indication the US economy is headed straight for a recession. Trump's plan of intimidating BRICS isn't working. In fact, it is achieving the opposite result in simply making BRICS stronger. Earlier this month, leaders from across the globe gathered in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, to attend the 2025 BRICS Summit. And it was during this very conference that Trump completely lost control. He fired off a series of angry messages on social media, warning the world that any country aligning themselves with the anti-American policies of BRICS will be charged an additional 10% tariff. Now, you might think the threat of an additional 10% tariff would be intimidating to smaller, developing countries. But the truth is, this behavior is the exact reason why BRICS exist in the first place. Brazil president and host of the 2025 BRICS Summit, Lula da Silva, said it best. "We are tired of blind subservience to Washington. Brazil today is turning east, where there is a partnership based on interests, not dictates." While BRICS nations commit to a more democratic and inclusive world order, Trump continues to choose a path of high tariffs and burning bridges with even the closest of American allies. Canada has now been threatened with a new 35% tariff, while 25% tariffs were placed on Japan and Korea, a shocking move for the two countries the US expects to be its biggest allies to counter Chinese influence. These actions are so clearly destructive to US prosperity and world standing, it leads one to question whether Trump is intentionally trying to collapse the country. While the United States desperately clings to its waning influence, BRICS have laid out the framework for a new multipolar future. And in today's video, we're going to break down the major developments of the 2025 BRICS conference, explain how world leaders are standing up to the US, and break down Trump's disastrous response to the increasingly multipolar world. Everyone, if topics like this interest you, you're going to love our video sponsor, Nomad Capitalist. Last September, I flew to Malaysia and met their founder, Andrew Henderson, at the 2024 Nomad Capitalist Live event in Kuala Lumpur. And it was like hearing a real-life case study of what I discuss on this channel. Andrew started as an entrepreneur, frustrated by huge tax bills, even though he was operating globally. But instead of accepting the status quo, he built a new framework for legally reducing taxes, gaining second citizenship, and investing in countries that actually want your business. He turned that experience into Nomad Capitalist, a company that helps you create a customized global plan no matter where you start from. The truth is that in today's chaotic world of uncertainty, you need a plan B, and Nomad Capitalist is the best company I've found to help you achieve just that. I'm traveling back to Malaysia this September to speak once again at this year's event. And if you want to join me in KL and learn the best strategies to protect yourself in today's chaotic world, simply visit nomadcapitalist.com/live and learn more about how you can attend this year's event. I'm honored to return as a speaker to the event and look forward to seeing you all in Malaysia soon. But now let's get back to the story of BRICS and how the organization continues to defy the odds and rise at a time of global uncertainty. Now, most people associate China as the leader of the BRICS organization, but during the 2025 summit, Brazil stole the show, using the platform as an opportunity to fight back against Trump and send a clear message to the US government and the world.
Porque eu não acho uma coisa muito responsável e séria presidente da República de país do tamanho dos Estados Unidos ficar ameaçando o mundo através da internet. Não é correto. Sabe? Ele precisa saber que o mundo mudou. Sabe? Não queremos imperador. Nós somos países soberanos. Se ele achar que ele pode taxar, os países têm o direito de taxar também. Existe a lei da reciprocidade. Eu acho Eu acho muito equivocado e muito irresponsável presidente ficar ameaçando os outros em redes digitais.
These bold words coming from the Brazilian president indicate one thing. The world is changing, and the US must now respect the sovereignty of countries pursuing a different path. But here is where things get very interesting, as Trump once again lost control and directly interfered into the domestic affairs of a sovereign nation. Let's break it down. As Trump has repeatedly shown, he values loyalty above all else, and for several years received incredible loyalty from Brazil's former president, Jair Bolsonaro, who was a massive Trump supporter and shared many of Trump's far-right views. In a striking parallel to the January 6th insurrection in the United States, after losing the 2022 Brazilian presidential election, Bolsonaro's supporters stormed Brazil's capital to stage an unsuccessful coup against the democratically elected Lula da Silva. Much like Donald Trump, Bolsonaro is now facing criminal charges for his role in the insurrection and has admitted to having informal conversations with military leaders where he explored alternatives within the framework of the Constitution to remain in power. This is literally exactly what Donald Trump tried to do when he lost the election to Joe Biden. But in a shocking turn of events, Trump announced during the BRICS Summit that the US government would slap Brazil with a 50% tariff in response to Trump's close ally, Bolsonaro, facing persecution. Everyone, this is a blatant interference into a sovereign nation's affairs. Unfortunately, something the US government has a long and muddled history of doing, most especially inside South America. But times have changed. Countries no longer fear sanctions and tariffs from the US, as Brazil's President Lula doubled down, stating Brazil can survive trade without the US and will look to other partners to replace it. The truth is, many US politicians are now realizing the new world we live in. Just look at the shocked and puzzled face of Secretary of State Marco Rubio trying to explain how China and Brazil are not even using the US dollar anymore in trade.
Today, Brazil, in our hemisphere, largest country in the Western Hemisphere south of us, cut a trade deal with China. They're going to from now on do trade in their own currencies, get right around the dollar. They're creating a secondary economy in the world, totally independent of the United States. We won't have to talk about sanctions in 5 years because there'll be so many countries transacting in currencies other than the dollar that we won't have the ability to sanction.
China has now stepped in to fill the massive strategic and economic void left by the United States, and the two countries' relationship has been flourishing. China and Brazil's economies are incredibly complementary, with Brazil being a massive supplier of China's raw material and food demands, while in turn, Brazil is a major importer of Chinese consumer goods like phones and electric vehicles. This type of win-win trade between complementary economies is exactly what BRICS is trying to replicate across the globe, and is a stark contrast to the current Western-based extractive model. Over the past 20 years, China has firmly surpassed the United States as Brazil's largest source of exports, reaching nearly 4 times that of the United States as of 2023. One of the biggest symbols of this transition is Brazil's automotive industry. Over the past 5 years, there has been an explosive rise in Chinese electric vehicles in Brazil. Brands like Ford are quickly losing market share to Chinese EV giants like BYD. In a shift that mirrors the broader diplomatic realignment from the US to China, BYD took over an abandoned Ford factory in Brazil, modernized it, and now provides thousands of jobs to the local economy. Whether it's smartphones or cars, China has eagerly stepped in to fill the void left by the United States, offering products that are not only more affordable, but often better quality. To further strengthen the relationship beyond economic ties, Brazil has become a key partner in China's Belt and Road Initiative, contributing to the construction of multiple ports, railways, and renewable energy projects. The most ambitious undertaking between the two nations to date is the Interoceanic Railway, a massive infrastructure project that will span the entire continent from Brazil to Peru. This mega project promises to dramatically reduce the time and cost associated with transporting goods from Brazil. Not only will it boost regional trade with Brazil's neighboring countries, but it will also turbocharge its trade with China. Whether goods are shipped through the Panama Canal or around the tip of South America, shipping from Brazil to China takes around 30 to 40 days. But with this new railway, total shipping time will be reduced by 7 to 10 days, as it directly links Brazil's interior to Peru's Pacific ports. Washington has been furious with China's growing presence in the region, but with no viable alternatives to offer, what did they expect? The only recent US attempt to rival China's investment projects was former Secretary of State Antony Blinken's trip to Peru last year, where the United States donated visibly outdated rail cars that were decades old. The press conference surrounding this donation was met with international criticism, as it was seen not as a meaningful contribution to the country's development, but rather as a desperate, half-hearted response to China's investment in the region. It was widely perceived as the US simply offloading its old, unwanted equipment with little regard for Peru's actual needs. Meanwhile, China is building massive infrastructure projects, like the Port of Chansi, China's key Belt and Road project in the continent and China's gateway to South America. In response to Peru's highly successful partnership in building the modern Port of Chansi, the US didn't try to strengthen ties or offer a better deal. Instead, Trump's special advisor on Latin American affairs called for tariffs of up to 60% on any company using the Chancay port to trade with China. Once again, it's hard to comprehend how US officials don't understand that threats and tariffs will not result in a positive outcome. Investing and building relationships, two things that China is very good at, is the only way forward. As a result of these bully tactics, it's no wonder why so many South American countries are enthusiastically willing to work with China. The sad part is, American investment in the region would be massively beneficial to American interests back home. The US would gain a lot from a richer and more developed Latin America. For one, it would considerably improve US illegal immigration issues and create wealth and infrastructure for American goods and services too. But unfortunately, the US foreign policy believes that other countries' gain is the United States' loss. America's closest regional neighbors and allies can see this too. Canada's Prime Minister has even gone on to say the old US-Canada relationship is over and that they are ready to stand up to the bully in the United States. And perhaps one of the biggest bombshell reports coming out of this year's BRICS conference was the presence of Mexico's Foreign Secretary De La Fuente at the conference in Rio. And trust me, this is no minor development. Mexico sending a high-ranking official sends a clear message to the United States. If not for the threat of being shut out of the US market, it's likely that Mexico would already be seeking full BRICS membership. Mexico and Canada are not only the United States' only two bordering countries, but America's first and second biggest trading partners by total trade value. With Canada saying its friendship with the US is over, Mexico flirting with BRICS membership, the US can't maintain influence in its own hemisphere, let alone the rest of the world. While Brazil and Latin America took center stage at this year's BRICS Summit, major developments from other regions underscored the alliance's growing influence. Notably, the 2025 meeting marked Indonesia's debut as a full member, a significant addition as the world's fourth most populous country and a major world economy. It also welcomed Vietnam as a new partner country, a massive expansion for the bloc. Vietnam's state-led development model closely mirrors China's, and its rapid rise in quality of living echoes China's trajectory a decade ago. At this stage in its economic ascent, Vietnam relies heavily on collaboration with Chinese firms to manufacture finished goods for global markets. And by joining BRICS, Hanoi sends a clear message to Washington. It is rejecting fear-mongering about containing China and instead embracing a pragmatic, cooperative approach with its neighbor. The US recognizes Southeast Asia is the ultimate prize. Once again, listen to Secretary of State Marco Rubio speak enthusiastically about the future of Southeast Asia, which ironically, the United States will not be a part of if Donald Trump continues this tariff war.
This is where much of the story of the 21st century is going to be written. This is where 2/3 of economic growth is going to happen over the next 25 or 30 years. And many of the countries in Southeast Asia, not only are they some of the youngest countries in the world, but they're about to see an enormous expansion of their labor markets, their labor pool, number of workers. This is a historic, once-in-a-generation opportunity.
Let's not forget that China is the leader of the Indo-Pacific region and is pushing forward, building relationships and maintaining its dominant position as the region's driver of economic growth. Trump's trade war was supposed to force submission, but instead, it accelerated the very thing Washington feared most, a world that no longer needs American approval to thrive. Brazil, Vietnam, Indonesia are defying Washington by proving that alternatives exist. China's investments into their countries are undeniably a better option to pursue, and pursuing them weaves safety nets for countries tired of living under America's thumb. The most ironic part of Trump tariffs and attempts to dissolve the bloc didn't weaken BRICS, but supercharged it. Every punitive measure pushes more nations into the BRICS orbit, and unfortunately for the US, it could have competed with better deals, smarter diplomacy, and real partnerships. But instead, it chose bullying, and the world is calling its bluff. The future isn't unipolar, it's multipolar, and BRICS is building it one nation at a time. Everyone, I hope you enjoyed today's deep dive into the latest on the BRICS organization. As always, you can count on this channel to give you the latest updates on all things geopolitics. Once again, I want to give a huge thank you to Nomad Capitalists for sponsoring today's important episode. Make sure you check out the details of their live event, and if you're in Kuala Lumpur, September 17th to the 20th, I would love to meet you in person at the Nomad Capitalist live event. Thank you all for your incredible support, and I look forward to seeing you all in our next video soon.